Good evening. Why are we always so silly right before we go live?
I know.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Hey,
Welcome to
everybody.
our second
Oh,
SoundMind
no.
Panel. Hope you have had a productive day. Hope you had a good day. And if you would do us
Uh-oh.
a favor, let us end out. And if you don't mind clicking that share button to let somebody know that we're on, we're here every second Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. Different topic, same team, Sound Mind, which is something we're all endeavor to acquire. A few minutes for more people to join in. And let us know where you're coming from, where you're logging in from. Tell us your name so we can say hello. And if you don't mind hitting that share button, the SoundMind Panel, Bethany Baptist Church Live.
Wow.
To invite you to be a conversation. All right, now we can get started.
Hi, Dr. Hudson.
Hey, Dr. Reggie.
Hello. Where were you guys? You're getting in there. How you feel?
Yep.
Oh, we are all
Everybody
good.
having like
problems today.
We are all here and accounted for. Look at the Lord.
That's the value, little hate.
Look at God. What? What did you say?
You froze now.
Everybody's
oh boy.
Everybody have
what in the world?
Yeah.
If you're listening, just stretch your hands to these computers, to this internet, and say, Lord, fix it, Jesus, fix it. We're having some connectivity issues tonight. We don't know what's going on, but we're gonna plow through. We're gonna muddle through.
Amen.
All right. Once again, thank you for for joining us for our SoundMind Panel. As you know, if this is your first time, we are here every second Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. with a different topic every month. And I want to introduce I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. I'll start. I'm Pastor Prescott from the greatest church in the world, Bethany Baptist Church, the Transformation Church in Lindenwood, New Jersey. And then you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves for those that don't know you.
I'm Tiff. Hi.
That's Dr. Tiffany Smith. I'll say it. She ain't gonna say it. That's the Dr. Tiffany Smith.
In New York.
Dr. Reggie Hudson. He's having a little issue with his connectivity tonight. He is Dr. Reggie Hudson from New Union Baptist Church.
Dr. Tiffany Smith. All right.
That was Dr. Reggie Hudson from New Union Baptist Church in New Rochelle, New York. My brother and my friend, one of Bishop's sons in the ministry. And then above him is
Deacon Andrea LeBou, goes to the same fabulous church that you do.
Yes, amen.
Yes. So as you're coming in, if you would be patient with us as we try to get this connectivity issue together. And while you're coming in, go ahead and like and share this broadcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about, yesterday was National Women's Day, right, y'all?
Yes, it was.
You know, we had a day, every day is National Women's Day for us. We had a day that we were recognized. So we are going to continue in that vein and talk about women empowerment. Women's empowerment. That's going to be our topic tonight as we proceed in the dialogue. If you have a question or a comment that you want to make, you can go ahead and type it in the box, and we will look at your questions and comments and try to address them as best we can within the time that we have. And once again, don't forget to let us know where you're logging in from, and please share this broadcast. Women's empowerment. So what does it mean to empower?
That's a big word.
That's a loaded word, right? It can be so many things. Self-determination, being determined to do certain things, self-esteem. Deacon LeBou, what were you going to say?
I was going to say self-esteem, self-motivated, all that whole empowerment wave of being confident to do and be who you are.
To be who you are.
To be
Primitive.
who you are.
Yeah, I agree. I think just having a sense of purpose and identity and something that you're passionate about that you're willing to pursue and work on, and also empowering other people and offering encouragement as people are on their individual and collective journey, just validating other people's experiences and processes.
Dr. Hudson?
I think he's frozen.
He's frozen. Look at the things that he is frozen on. That was priceless. Dr. Hudson, you might want to log out and try to come back in. Because you are frozen. I hope you can hear us. So I think all had different
everybody.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Dr. Hudson, can you hear me?
His face is
this is cracking me up. You like okay. So we all had different definitions about what it means to be empowered. And Reverend Tiffany, I want to start with something you said. You said encouraging other people. And I would like to start there because what do you think is the greatest challenge with us encouraging other women? Because I saw a quote one time, it said, empower women, empower women. So what do you think is the greatest challenge for us as empowered women?
Yeah.
What's the greatest challenge in empowering other women?
You know, in my couples therapy earlier today, one of the tools I gave them is that like no one's internal process should be condemned. And I think that when we're trying to encourage other people, sometimes we have this issue with unhealthy comparisons, and it makes it difficult for us to embrace that people are on different parts of their journey and have different processes, and sometimes jealousy, insecurities, you not being where you want to be, we have a hard time embracing that someone is maybe ahead of us in a certain area, or you know, they represent where we want to be, and it makes us insecure. And sometimes we just have a hard time just like accepting and appreciating where other people are in their process. And it's not cute, but I think everyone at one point or another, at one age or another, at one point in life has had that struggle from time to time. But you have to accept that, take accountability for those feelings, and then offer something different. Think a different thought. One of my favorite things that you said, Reverend Prescott, right, is think a different thought. Like how can we encourage ourselves to do better in that area and be more loving toward our sisters as they're going through their own individual process.
And I'm glad you said that, because with a process, it's three of us on this call. None of us, wherever we are in life right now, none of us have had the same process, and God has something different for each of us, right? So we tend to look at the end result. Like I'm going to look at Dika Libu and say, she went to school and she got her degree. How come I can't do that? God favor her. But I don't see that she's up to 4 o'clock in the morning studying, writing papers and making sacrifices so she can get that paper done, and drinking 4 cups of coffee so she can stay awake. You understand what I'm saying? We don't see that. We see the cute side of it, but we don't see the ugly side of it. And then I think the other thing, Reverend Tiffany, to your point, I think the other thing is that God will never give us something that we're not ready to steward.
Absolutely.
If we can't steward what we're asking God for well, God's like, I got to hold it back, because it's all about building, character building. So if we're not, God never gives immature blessings. God never gives mature blessings to immature people.
Absolutely.
So a lot of times I'm looking at Reverend Tiffany and saying, well, how come I don't have what she has? I've worked the same process. I don't know her process. I don't know what it takes to be Reverend Tiffany Smith. I don't know what it takes to be soon to be Dr. Andrea Lebeau. I don't know what that takes. So we can't, it's when we compare ourselves with other people, it's like apples and oranges. Because nobody knows the full story of our lives. Tika Lebeau, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to go back to what Reverend T said about trust and comparisons. I think we get caught in that. And like you said, we get caught in comparing ourselves to who has what, who's doing what, and feeling like I can't. When you talked about the initial question of how do we help empower other women, and sort of almost like what goes wrong with that process. I think approach has a lot to do with it sometimes. I think when you approach people in a non-judgmental way, and in a way that is accepting and saying, look, I've been where you've been. I know where you are. Let me help you. Go show you how I got where I got. I think it's received differently.
Yeah.
But it takes a strong person to take direction.
Right.
And
right.
Zeke and Labu, it takes a strong person to also give direction in an appropriate way. Oh my gosh, y'all. Let me tell you a story. So I had when I was, let me be careful. Okay, wait. So
I know, right? Like, let me be real careful.
When I was going through the process of starting the daycare center, I was around in a room full of women that were starting centers and going through the inspection process. And you could tell who was confident in their role and who was not.
Yeah.
And because of how they led. And there were a group of women on the platform who were like, if you need help, call me. If you need this, ask questions. And then there was this one woman who got up there and I was like, wow, she's going to be the one who gets up there and changes the whole dynamic. And she got up there and she's like, if you do this, I'm going to write you up. If you do this, if you do that, and it just deflated everybody in the room. And it was like times when we get into a certain position and we feel like we've arrived, we don't recognize that comes with responsibility. That when you come to a certain place in your journey, that it comes with some type of responsibility. You can't get there and then deflate everybody underneath you. Like, I'll do it. And so I think a part of empowering other people is, learning yourself, being a good leader, being willing to share something and give back, and not using your growth as a means to, deflate in other people.
Right. Elevate yourself to the point you can't help other people.
Yes.
Right. Because one of my pet peeves with anything in life, if you're trying to help somebody or mentor somebody or show somebody the way, one of my pet peeves is us trying to make people think that we're perfect.
Yes.
And we got it all figured out. And we never made a mistake. I think we completely lose people when we say, I got here, but I didn't have a struggle. I've never felt insecure. I've never been jealous. People ain't trying to hear that because we're all human, and we all of us have had those type of emotions. All of us. Dr. Hudson, I'm curious to see what you have to say. We were talking about how to encourage and empower other women. I'm curious to see what you have to say from a pastor standpoint and from a male standpoint. How, in your role as a leader, do you empower other women in your church?
Okay, well, first of all, congratulations for Women's History Month. Your month is longer than Black History. Black History Month. It's a blessing that now we're at that point, but still, a long way to go where women are being honored, recognized, and given the opportunity and taking the opportunity to make their mark in life. Interestingly enough, I'm glad you asked that. You're a good friend of mine. Dr. Stephanie Quarles is an example. We met 30 years ago when I pastored my first church, and she was working for a major company, IBM, and was really high profile there among the executives and was very dependent upon. But she had this thing where she was believe it or not, a very person when it would come to speaking in front of people. And I think I might have told you, Pastor Bell, the story that one time she came to me and she had this major presentation and she said, can you help me? Because, I don't like talking before people. I said, no problem. So I'm spending some time going over some steps with her. And I just said, by the way, how many are going to be in this conference? She said 2. I said, 2? You had me take all this time? But then the Lord began to show me some things about it. And I began to just speaking in the fact, a time is going to come. You're going to speak in front of thousands of people. A time is going to come. What's in you, God is going to just continue. Be you. Continue to just do what you do. and understand that everything, don't be afraid to fail. I always tell people, they have not stopped making erasers for pencils yet. Okay. I don't mind if somebody in leadership drops the ball. Just don't keep kicking the thing. Pick it up. So she's a tremendous example of an empowerment, one who was a tremendous follower, still is, supporter, still is, but now has risen to the point where, you know, she went and got her MBA with specialization in marketing and finance in 18 months. She got her doctoral degree in 18 months, which they usually give you 10 years to get. And she has her own not-for-profit. She has done a tremendous job in the area of education now, and high demand for many school systems. So that's the poster child, so to speak, when I look for empowerment. And one thing about it is, I don't care what is offered. You got to believe in you. You got to talk to you. You got to be able to. We can quote scripture. We're fearfully, we're wonderfully made. That's great. We know that. But do you believe that? And understand, you never should become the prisoner of somebody else's choice or opinion.
Absolutely. And that brings me to a point how empowered women, we need to build and work on self-confidence. I said earlier when you weren't on the call that God gives us opportunities that we're able to steward, and that everything big starts small. And the example you gave with Pastor Stephanie, she had to build her confidence speaking in front of 2 people before God elevated her to speak in front of other people. So I think, right. And then you said, give and take the opportunity. The word that I heard the loudest in that statement was take. Because sometimes we're given the opportunity, but we shrink back. We say, God, I'm ready. I want to do it. I can do it. And then when the opportunity comes, we kind of shrink back because we have this misconception that when we have to do something, we should never be afraid. How many of us have done things, and to be honest, we just had to simply do it afraid?
Yes.
And the more we did it, the less afraid we are. But I think that, I don't want to say fear, but I think that fear, that feeling of insecurity gives us that edge that we need. But if we're waiting for all of the fear and insecurity to go away, I don't think we'll ever do anything of significance.
Right.
You guys agree or disagree?
I agree.
You ain't lying.
You know, Pastor Val, you in particular, and all of you, I think I said last time, have shattered some serious ceiling. Glass is still falling from it. But you really have, Pastor Val, shattered the ceiling in the ministerial area. You know, I mean, I remember coming up, you know, when men just were gabbados, and some still may be, where there's intimidation of preaching. Intimidation, but I mean, here it is, because you were faithful over the years, as far as I know, about 15 plus 20 plus years, faithful, committed, supportive, in the front when you had to be, very powerful in the background when you needed to be. And my whole thing is, if you prepare, your time will come. And now look, you're a pastor. You know, I mean, you're number 3 in terms of pastoring the church, which I know you don't want to do, but still, where you are now, one of the powerful positions in the country among a major church. You see what I'm saying? And how it's not getting there, it's how you act to stay there. You're the same person before the elevation.
Thank you.
Than you are now. Although you do meet the responsibility and challenges. So kudos to you, and from that perspective. And I think that's a great power in this month. And of course, Deacon Andrea and Reverend Tiff, Dr. Tiff, you guys just continue. Every month when you come on, you don't really realize the impact you're making. People may not tell you, but somebody gets off this call, and if nothing else, it makes them think.
Amen.
Why not? And that's important.
Right. Because at the end of the day, if God could do it for us, he could do it for you. Because God is not a respecter of person, he's a respecter of principles. So I think a lot of times we want the elevation, the title, the whatever it is we're pursuing, but we don't want the work.
Amen.
And you can't disconnect the elevation from the work.
Amen.
Right? So we established that we have to build self-confidence. What are some ways, ladies and gentlemen, what are some ways that you worked on building your self-confidence?
Reverend Prescott, I think so what you said earlier is like what helped me is recognizing that like some stuff you will never be able to do if you think that you're gonna not do it afraid sometimes. And like I think recognizing that sometimes you get your confidence from pushing forward and doing things that you're scared of doing. I think that trying to stay comfortable, it never yields fruit. You just stay stuck.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
If you don't learn to just do it afraid, you'll always stay complacent and in the same place. But anything worth doing takes some willingness and some assertiveness. And nobody that you see in front of you that's doing these things that you think are so great did not do it with a risk, to their, of being embarrassed at times, of failure, and sometimes you see the after effects of where people are, but you don't know what it took for them to get there, how much failure and fear that they have to overcome. And you see the finished product, or you see work in progress, but you don't know what it took for them to get there. That's why it's so important not to compare, because you don't know what people's struggles were. There's not a time that I get up at church to do prayer that I don't have the bubble gut.
Exactly. Same.
I'm not freaking out.
Absolutely. It's like, oh my God, I gotta pray. Right.
Like, that you don't see, if you look closely, you see my skirt shaking. And I think
you gotta wear a long skirt that day.
And Bishop laughs at me all the time, like, you can see her skirt shaking. And I think people think that like if you're good up there and you're just like, oh, it's so easy for you, and you're like, I'm freaking out every Sunday.
Right.
You have to push past the fear. If you're waiting for the fear to go away,
it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
And you know what's so funny, Reverend Tiffany? Every time you get up, I'm like, she is so calm and confident. So you saying that, I would look at you and never think. The average person would look at you and never think that you are shaking. Your skirt is shaking, right? And then I think that's the importance of keeping a journal, because once you conquer something, that thing serves as a point of reference for the next time you have to do something. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's how God elevates us and allows us to become more self-confident, of course, with his help, because we're like, okay, but I did it last time. I was tripping. I thought I was going to mess up. I thought I was going to faint. I thought it was going to be crazy, but I did it. Right. And then you get this kind of like, okay, I did it. Right. I did it. So God did it through me. He can do it again. Right. But I think it's so right that we have to be willing, and I say this all the time, we have to be willing to lean into our discomfort.
Yes, right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
We have to be willing.
I feel like when those bobblehead dolls, because that's all I keep doing. But what I hear is that, and I seem to always come back, it's a process.
Yes.
Empowerment is a process, and feeling empowered it's not a light switch you just switch on and off. And it comes from going through those moments of pushing through fear, getting up from disappointment, when we fall, picking ourselves back up, because with each challenge or each thing we meet gives us an additional skill, builds our strength, builds our endurance, which eventually builds that empowerment. So we're all a work in process. I don't care where we are in our lives, we are still, in my opinion, always a work in progress. Always.
It's important. I'm sorry, that's Val.
No, go ahead, Dr. Hudson.
No, I was just going to say, like you said before, it's important that we keep our fear behind our faith.
Yeah.
It's just when it gets out in front of our faith, we have problems. And, I'm praying for the time where men and women, to a greater proportion, especially in our Black and brown community, for sure, that we can embrace each other's creativity, ability, thought process, and don't, I tell our preachers or women at our church. I said, if I ever hear you get up and say, as a woman preacher, no, you're a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear me get up and say, as a male preacher, you're a preacher. You know, you're not going to put that out there. So this is your time to be entrepreneurs, own your businesses. This will be a time to be a strong voice with your shadow in your communities. This is a time to just do so many continued positive things, and especially for the children, the girls, the teenage girls, the young adult girls. They need present day models. You know, we celebrate, you know, Black history and women's history, but we tend to go back to people that are no longer living.
Right.
What about modern day history? Now we don't discredit it before, but we modern day history.
And people that we see every day.
Right. Right.
And Dr. Hudson, a verse of scripture, I'm trying to find it now, that you gave me a long time ago, because let's be real. Sometimes we want to, we're working on being empowered and being self-confident. We need help, but we don't have that hands-on help that we need. And the scripture that you gave me, God is my confidence, where is that?
Oh, yeah, Proverbs 3:26.
Proverbs 3:26.
Confidence and keep your foot from stumbling.
But the Lord shall be your confidence. So even when we find ourselves in seasons where we're pursuing something and we feel like we don't have the kind of support from other women, we're talking about women's empowerment, that we don't have, that's still not an excuse. Because I don't know about you, I'd rather God be my confidence than all of y'all. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, that's the icing on the cake. I want that. And I'm open to that. But if it's not there, I know that at the end of the day, we have to know who we are, and we find out who we are when we meet God, right?
And
so we have to know who we are.
About is verse 27 that really supports 26. It said, "Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in thine power and thy hand to do it."
Absolutely.
So, you know.
So then we have come full circle.
Yeah.
Empower women. Empower women.
Yep.
Empower women, empower women. So we don't want people to think we're perfect and I got here overnight and I didn't have any struggle and it was all peaches and cream. No, let me tell you about the backside of the desert. All right. And I think when we share, when we share that with people, I think they can relate to us, and that resonates more with them than I'm here, congratulate me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think we have to share our success story and our struggles. Absolutely. But I think people learn more from our struggles.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And our time is up already. Oh my God, that went quick.
No.
Ooh,
right?
That went fast.
We went 5 minutes later because we started later. Okay. Yeah, it's 7:35. Any ending responses from anybody?
Just Robert Prescott, I know that you're like such a dynamic teacher about spiritual maturity, and I think that like when you're sharing this, it's like so fitting. It helps us to be like, I really need to grow up. Like when you talk about this, it's just like these are areas that I need to grow, and I hope that everyone listening understands that we all have a responsibility to grow up in certain areas and figure out where we need to embrace our own process and uniqueness, and ask for help when we need it, and keep moving forward in whatever journey we are on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Every now and then I just simply ask God, how am I doing?
Yeah.
And I just try to wait to listen. God, how am I doing? What do I need to tighten up? What do I need? How am I doing?
Yeah.
That's a good question to answer.
Yet, has he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he answered the other day. I was like, dang. Anybody else?
Yeah, just continue your now, which makes your next, which creates your future. That's all I can just,
Amen.
Wow. What else can you say to that? Really?
Right.
And it really is. It's that says it all. And I always think there's somebody listening who doesn't feel what we're saying and can't identify. When we talk about empowerment being a process, I challenge everyone, just look back over your lives and pick out one thing that you got over. One thing.
Yep. And you use it as your point of reference.
And use it as your point of reference. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm going to end with this again. Everything big starts small.
That's right.
Everything big. Thank you all for tuning in to our SoundMind panel. Again, meet us back here the second Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. And if there are some topics you want us to cover, go ahead and type that in the chat or send us an email, social@gotobethany.com, and we will try to address those topics. All right. You guys have a good night, and we will see you soon. Take care, everybody.